And we're back. Welcome to Print Your Games, the podcast for all that's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres.
If you joined us for our very first episode, we went over the reasons you need to have a 3D printer. And one of those reasons that we talked about, definitely not the only one, but one that's definitely getting a lot of talk in the community is price. You can save a ton of money by buying a 3D printer and then 3D printing your miniatures and your terrain. Or do you?
Dun,
Do
dun,
you
dun.
really save money? I know that a lot of criticism in chat comes around about when 3D printers are going, like people objecting to it. But are you taking into account this and that and the cost of the chemicals and the paper towels and the blah blah blah? And yes,
Indeed.
actually, in every example today, when we talk about price, I will be taking into context the cost of my gloves, the cost of my alcohol, the cost of my paper towels, and making some very real numbers as we examine: do we really save money by turning our garages into miniature factories?
I mean, I think so.
I
Let's
know
get
that
into it.
yes, let's get into it. So first, I want to preface that saving money is not the only reason that you should consider getting into 3D printing. We had several other great reasons in our episode, like humongous selection of models, the ability to customize on-demand minis anytime you want them instead of having to go to the store, the ability to just have such a cool reach, and many other reasons that a 3D printer is awesome for your games. But yes, cost and savings money is definitely part of the equation.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm also going to say I'm not sure I'm saving a lot of money because because I have access to the 3D printer has given me access to buy so many more models. And so I buy so many models and print so many of them. So I definitely have more models than I would have had without a 3D printer.
I mean,
But
we're
I'm
we're
probably
definitely
spending just as much on my hobby as I was beforehand.
we're definitely talking about scope and what you're
Mhm,
interested in. Obviously,
mhm.
spoiler alert before we get to it. I'm the sort of person when a new pre-paint thing came out until very recently, I got a brick plus of any pre-paint
Oh,
series. And I will tell
oh.
you, both
Mhm.
in terms of cost and in terms of satisfaction, those numbers are tipping. And the scales were maybe even for the first few months, but they're tipping way in the
Right.
3D printing
Mhm.
realm's favor.
Right.
Yeah. So in my case, it's no brainer. But you know what? If you're a player who's playing D&D once a week and just wants to print your mini, find someone to do it for you. Get it from
Mhm.
Airforge, whatever.
Right.
If you're a dungeon master and you want custom minis, then you start moving that territory. If you're a wargamer, I'm going to say hands down, but we'll talk about why.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
for wargamer, I'm going to say 3D printing all the way. But we'll
Mhm.
get into it.
Right. And that's the thing. We're going to examine the different types of gamers and whether 3D printing is for them for a financial reasons. No matter what kind of gamer you are. Are you a player? Are you a dungeon master? There's lots of reasons you might want a 3D printer and cool things you can do with a 3D printer. We're definitely not saying that, hey, unless you're a war gamer with a 2,000 point a month habit, don't touch a 3D printer. We're not going to say that.
No,
But we're
no,
definitely
I'm
going
not
to
say that.
examine like the cost benefit analysis compared to traditionally manufactured miniatures, if this is going to be for you. And that's definitely going to be part of it. Where I'm going to be very honest with all the different ways that you can save money, that you can spend money, and how you cannot save money and pitfalls. So but let's start the basics. But the flat truth is, before you start saving any money in 3D printing, you have to first spend money with 3D printing. You've got to buy the printer itself. And if you're into
Absolutely.
and then you have to decide if you're going to get the FDM printer or the resin printer. For the most of the examples today, we're going to be focusing on miniatures, but we are definitely going to dive into terrain, and that's when the FDM printers are going to start to come into play for sure. But for the first bit and for most of this, we're going to be focusing on resin printers and resin models. Though do stick tuned for the second part of the episode where we will dive into the FDM realm. And I'm going to just go ahead and say a statement that's going to make a certain percentage of our audience mad. Is that If you're printing miniatures, you want a resin printer. Can you do it on an FDM printer? Yes. Will it ever be as good as on a resin printer? No. And like, unless you're maestro at the FDM printer. But the resin printers are getting super better every day. They're starting to print. The newest printers are literally printing at higher detail than mold casting is possible to print.
Yeah, if you were to try to catch your FDM printer up to the point where it could do resin quality minis, you're investing more time than your gaming hobby into your FDM hobby, I guarantee you.
Yeah. And they don't make like 51 micron FDM nozzles for your Ender 3. I mean, if they do, somebody link me like, I want to see that thing, and I kind of want to see a test print on it, but like, that's just not something that is readily available. All right.
Well, and when you move slicers up into that range, your print times become astronomical. Like, I've had prints not even that close to resin, but as good as I could get them, that took like 6 days if I printed everything at once. Like, it would be ridiculous. So
exactly. Yeah. So to get involved, there's going to be the upfront cost. Now, to get a decent starter resin printer, you're looking at about $150 for ones we would recommend. Like, you can get the Halo 1, you can get a Mars 2 Pro, you can get a Mars 3, the Anycubic Photon Mono. Like, there's lots of good like entry level printers at the $150-ish on during sales, up to about $200 US. Like, that initial investment is going to be there. So that's so, you know, you've got that is, but that's not too much of an investment. That's like,
no, it's not that bad. And that's like, if you're an in-person player and say you're playing like RPGs or want more replacement parts for your board games, that's a decent deal. It's going to work out for you pretty quick.
Right. When you start saving on resin, when you start saving money, they really are talking about the money you save per model after that upfront investment, which is the cost of the materials when the printer uses it, the cost of resin. And that's where you start to see these ridiculous things. Like, I've thrown up on the things like these high elf models that I've printed, like, or this ghoul, he was 8 cents.
He's a pretty handsome lad for 8 cents.
Yeah. You know, this technically not a Space Marine was 53 cents total, and that includes printing his big old thick chunky boy base. Often printing bases uses up almost as much, or even some places more resin than the model that you put on it. So do be, you know, print awesome resin bases, but, you know, just keep in mind that chews up resin as fast as just printing models. So if you want to just buy 100 pack of bases from Amazon for $10, you actually will save money on bases if you want to just get plain bases.
You did those wood discs, right? That were like super
from
cheap.
Warcrest Creations. It's like 300 of them for $15 from Warcrest Creations. I'm like, thanks, Warcrest. This is awesome.
Nice.
And that is that is definitely cheaper than. So will you save money on bases if they're cool, detailed, sculpted bases with like gravestones and stuff on them? Yeah. You know, 8 cents, 20 cents for the biggies and stuff like that. But plain generic old bases printed in resin, maybe don't. If you can, just, you know, 100 pack from Amazon, $10. So we've been defeated. 3D printing doesn't save you money when buying plain bases.
Though I will say this, when you're doing plain bases, you're probably also buying basic material, so that can get spendy too.
Yeah, it
like,
does.
If you go get like your tuft and your you know, moss and rocks and whatever, I mean, you can just go get rocks in your yard. But like, depending on what you do with that, you could easily make that.
Oh yeah,
catch up.
Absolutely. Like, I like the Geek Gaming Scenets base ready mix and stuff. Now that's still, you know, it's not expensive. It's like $20 for a bag that I still haven't used up after 300 models. So it's pretty cheap too. But yeah, if you're buying like Citadel sand and stuff, but, you know, that's either here or there. You could go to the yard and grab a scoop of dirt and then bake it in your oven, and then you've got base material that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But the reason you bake it in the oven, by the way, is to kill the microbes and bacteria so that you don't have stuff growing on your models later.
Yeah, I've also seen a lot of the coconut fiber stuff that you can do. You can buy really cheap and process into some cool basing stuff.
Right. So we're not talking base. So plain base is a plain base. So
Plain
for
base.
plain bases, no matter what game you're playing, you can get those cheaper than resin printing them. FDMs can print them pretty cheap too, though. So well, maybe not. So FDM printers, you can punch weight with the Amazon 100 packs, but for resin, maybe don't resin print plain bases unless it's like I have done it a few times for like unusual size bases where like I need 150 by 150 base and I don't know where I'm going to get it, so I'll do that. And evening, Alex. Thanks for joining us. But
Evening,
so
Alex.
you have the upfront cost of printing, and that's always going to be, we're going to, for the moment, discount that because it is just the price of entering the game. So, but do keep in mind there is going to be the upfront cost in doing resin printing. So now let's talk about the different types of gamers and whether or not that they will save money when printing, because it is very, like Kristen said, it's very different. If you're only going to need a couple dozen models in your lifetime, maybe if money is the only reason, then resin 3D printing is maybe not the best way to save money. It's really going to take about 100 models before before that break even price of the printer you just bought paid for itself with the cost savings you did. Because if you're an RPG gamer who only needs, okay, let's start with the place that's most hard for resin printing to do it. I'm an RPG gamer.
Mm-hmm. And you're a player or a dungeon master?
Let's do dungeon master because player, it is just, you need one mini, you ask your GM to print it. That's
right.
how that's going to be.
That's what we would hope would happen anyway.
Yeah. If you only ever need one miniature, resin 3D printing is not the way to save money. You will get that miniature for your player character for under 50 cents after spending $100 or $150 on the printer. But there's lots of reasons to get a printer. But let's say you're a game master. I need monsters, Kristen. I need lots of variety of Zambi. I need to have an Otyug. I need to have my gnolls. I need dragons, Kristen. I need dragons. Is resin 3D printing going to save me money as a game master for my habit?
There's a lot of sliders there.
This is the hardest category for resin to compete in, and we will explain why in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, being that is my primary thing, I still think it does, but it also because I run lots of games, right? So there's a whole thing there, if you're running an established adventure, for instance, you're going to have a very set shopping list, and oftentimes there's going to be support. So maybe you're going to be more efficient to just get the things, but most of those things pre-painted are in blind boxes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and buying those blind boxes mini individually. So we're talking about like if you're playing a Pathfinder Adventure Path, those Rise of the Rune Lord stuff, because they're blind blocks, the collectibles, they go up speculatively in value.
Yep.
And if you think GW is expensive on the mini, wait till you're throwing down $170 to get a Setiel mini that was printed 5 years ago. I don't like that math. I don't like that math, Kristen. Yeah, I do too.
But yeah, I mean, to get like a full play set, there's usually about 45 in most of the modern WizKids.
But we're not going to go. Let's not go for exact. Let's be fair here. Most people aren't going to go for the exact, officially branded Setiels on their official.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm running a weekly D&D game. Like I'm not playing Pathfinder. I'm playing D&D 5th edition, and I'm running a home campaign that I'm writing myself. So this is probably the most difficult place to compete in for resin 3D printing.
Sure, because there's starter sets and things that have or tokens if you want to go that way.
Yeah. Because the cheap way to get monsters in traditional manufacturing, you can go to our friends over at Reaper. Reaper Miniatures make so many models of monsters, and they're available as bones for like as low as like $1 a mini, like usually about $3 or $4 a mini, but like a pack of 6 kobolds for $4 is a thing you can get from Reaper.
Yeah. But if you need 12, it's possible you'll buy your gaming store out at 6.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you do have to go find it at the gaming store.
Yeah.
And so as the game, so for RPG miniatures, you're not worried about super branded stuff. You're not competing at GW prices. You can get cheap Reapers. You can get Whiz Kids pre-paint, not unpainted stuff, because you're going to have to paint this stuff yourself. If you're wanting pre-painted stuff, that gets expensive. You're buying the Whiz Kids pre-packaged boxes for D&D or for
15 to 20 bucks a
Pathfinder.
pop.
Yeah, and you get 8 minis in that, which is still
actually you usually get 4 in the base ones.
Oh no, they went down, didn't they? I
Yeah.
forgot. I remember the days when I would buy $7 packs and get 12 minis, and those were the best days.
The sleeves of those old D&D
Yeah.
minis were pretty good, but yeah, they keep winnowing that down, and like I said, it's 45 minis. You're getting 120, 130 bucks to even get a brick at discount.
Right. Yeah. So that's to get it down to $3 a mini. So you're still at $3 a mini, but hey, they're painted this time. Or you're buying, $2 to $5 miniatures from Reaper or from WizKids' Nozzlers line or Pathfinder line, depending on what you want. So you've got access to cheap minis. And if you want a big old pack of them, you can go over to North Star Miniatures and buy their pack of like Frostgrave Knolls, which are really great set of 20 Knolls for $20. That's $1 a Knoll.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a steal.
Yeah. So yeah, you are saving some money on some prints, but you've got to get the files. So there's MZ4250, which those are all free files.
Yep.
And there is Yashishi Kyojin Studios, who is another one that does all either free, unsupported, or $2 for the supported file. Which are the excellent quality miniatures that they produce. Now, but if you're going to go for some of the bigger manufacturers, or on average, you're looking about $4 to $5 per miniature file that you're going to need, or it's about 10 to 15 bucks for a pack that has like a group of like 6 or so themed monsters together or modular. So I'm thinking like, a group of skeleton warriors or orc warriors or a pack of gnolls, since we're comparing gnolls to gnolls, or kobolds. You can usually get like a group of like 5 or 6 of the files online for that. And then you've got to print them yourself. And so in this case, where, you're going to print off a lot of 1s and 2s of a file, I'm going to need 1 or 2 Yugs. I'm going to need a dozen kobolds, but I'm only going to need 1 kobold sorcerer champion. So I'm going to have to go buy that one special.
Right.
You don't save money in this case. This is the one case where buying the traditional models, is about even with resin 3D printing.
Depending on your specificity, I'll agree with that.
There's a way around all this. Oh, sorry,
okay.
You go ahead.
No, it's okay. I have a very specific D&D related situation we can talk about if you want me to go there.
Okay.
If you were paying attention to D&D Direct last week, they announced Spelljammer.
Yes, they did.
And Spelljammer is fascinating in its popularity. People either hate it or they love it. I'm in the love camp. But it has so many new things a dungeon master needs to represent that world. And I love WizKids. I buy all their, a lot of their stuff, but the shotgun blast of products they're trying to release at the beginning of this is fascinating and terrible. like we're getting a $250 massive Astral Dreadnought, which is cool. If anybody wants to get me one for a present, I would love that thing. But it's $250. You could buy a printer, and anyway, obviously that's one thing. There's a solar dragon that is super awesome. Might be a little fiddly. It has transparent parts and non-transparent parts, so it would be a bit of work for you to 3D print. I want to say it's about $100. But when you get to the blind box situation and stuff that's going on with that, you've got ships, you've got all these unusual player character races, and usually you're getting like 1 or 2 of them. I would agree with you, Alex, but we'll get that in a second.
Mhm.
However, there are Patreons that love Spelljammer,
Mhm.
and so Across the Realms
Oh yeah.
did a GIF and Hidozi set. If you want, I'll shoot you a link to the.
Yes, please.
Let's see here, but
Mhm.
these are such specific creatures, and it's one of those things that never, ever, ever is WizKids going to be able to create the sort of sampling that a person needs for a player character in them. And you're going to get one or two. You'll be lucky if both genders are represented, or more genders depending on the species. But like let's see, that link go through. It just sent the picture. Why did it send the picture? I sent a link. Oh, you got, okay. That's Gloomy Kid. I was actually going to bring that one up too. But again, and Gloomy Kid, I was very fortunate enough to be in his original Patreon. Now his tribe is a discount pass, which is still worth it, by the way. He's very, very affordable. But when he was doing his Patreon, you got access to the entire library. And again, just so many cool different gift figs, right? Like that is, you're covering at least 2 or 3 different classes, probably. The one I sent you from Across the Realms has a lot more like melee options and stuff. But to actually kind of like represent all these very unusual species, WizKids is going to have a hell of a time to even scratch the surface, right? The other thing they're doing, and this is what I was going to bring up with the Gloomy Kid, is they're adding Thri-kreen, which were originally a Dark Sun race,
Right.
into Spelljammer, kind of replacing the species called Zitchil. I can't say them right anyway. But that is going to be a whole nother set. And again, Gloomy Kid did a whole Dark Sun set with a ton of Thri-kreen. And there are some really cool, I know, like
Right.
Lord of the Print and stuff did some things. So again, if you're this specific, the Dungeon Master is going to definitely benefit from the 3D printing and save money if they want to do that.
Right.
Because to pull that many of those minis from blind boxes and stuff, it's going to be so expensive.
Right. And absolutely. And because like this is going to be a popular setting for one of the most popular games in the world, when this book starts coming out, and even now, just that we've got some details on what is going to be in that book, the 3D printing world is going to answer those needs.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many GIF and sci-fi Thri-kreen, which Starfinder already had those, and they were cool scientist bugs, and they were awesome.
Yes, and again, the 3D printer is getting closer with that, but way closer than the physical minis ever did.
Yeah.
So
if you're the reach of the possible, like 3D printing is like the best place if you've got very specific needs, because like for the longest time, like Deathcore of Krieg were just like a very popular niche faction on Forge World models that you couldn't get, and like now they're in plastic, but that's just an example. Like you mentioned Dark Sun. There's so many great Dark Sun sets that have been made out there to support that campaign setting that's not even being published anymore.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a huge community though, huge.
Yeah.
But I was gonna throw out oh shoot, I lost it. Never mind, go ahead.
Right. And we've also like been giving 3D printing in its worst case scenario on cost, because we were talking about going buying the files like as single files, but like the second you start supporting on Patreon, and you're paying like $10 for a bundle, or you're getting them off Kickstarter bundles instead, the price of those STL files drop under $1 a piece immediately. And then sometimes even crazy, like Archvillain Games, for instance, or Titan Forge,
Epic.
you're getting like literally 50 plus models. Epic is just ridiculous. Epic is like over 100 models a month for $10 freaking dollars. And that is just insane. And even if but what about the ones they put out last month? There's so many people making models right now that you can just get on like stlbundles.com and scroll through it. And odds are, more often than not, somebody is going to currently be releasing something that is going to be a close match to what you want in your D&D game right now. And or they will be next month. Like, just shop around a little bit, and you will be able to fill out just about any need you'd want. And then by getting into one of those patrons, if for an artist you like, you'll get a discount code that's like somewhere between 50 and like OPR 70% off their previous releases so that then they become stupid cheap.
Yeah,
So
and
the
then a lot
cost
of
goes
the
down.
and a lot of the higher end ones like AVG or
Mhm.
whatever Arc Villain, you get
Mhm.
modules now. And so
Mhm.
you get not just the cool custom sets, but you're getting like, especially if you play 5e right now, you
Right.
could get your whole campaign dumped in your lap. I mean, they're bringing on
Right.
Ed Greenwood and all that stuff, like
Mhm.
tons and tons of content that is on top of all your minis.
Right.
So
Mhm.
huge saving there.
I'm going to bring in a thing we've got from Alex. I hope you're still with us, Alex. But they were talking. They bought a Shamrazan demon from the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, which includes shipping, import, and tax from US to UK. It cost £80, 110 USD. I wish I could have 3D printed that in PLA. Yeah, I'm so sorry. In resin, there's so many great options for that model that you could have done in resin. But yeah, that's a good example. Like for if you're talking about like rare collectible models, then immediately 3D printing wins again. And if you have some sort of way, if you're just a little bit more savvy in how you buy your models, then literally the worst way possible, which is just buying singles with no discount,
Mm-hmm.
then if you're getting STLs and bundles, if you're doing Kickstarters, if you're just using the discount codes with the crews that you like the most, like Cast and Play, pledge into Cast and Play, get their 50% discount code, and then go back and buy their stuff for cheap. Ditto with Arc Villain Games, um,
And
Artisan Guild.
tacking onto that with Cast and Play and Epic, you get a
Mm-hmm.
throwback set every month
Right.
too. So like chances are, like I was all bummed about missing like some Mind Flayer things, and I was like, oh look, 2 months in, there it is, the whole set for free.
Yep.
Didn't have to use a discount or anything. It just was given to me. So
Right. I mean, there's sometimes I will buy stuff, just hey, I need this, it's $5, I buy it, or I need this, it's $10, I buy it. But often, if the second it gets into like I need this complete set that's priced at $30, so I'll pledge in for $10, get the 50% discount code, get it for $15, and technically I saved $5, and then I also get these 50 extra minis that was this month's pledge.
Yeah, and the welcome pack usually too. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and if you take the time, you can probably find one of those codes somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
Even in the case in which 3D printing is having its hardest time competing at cost, 3D printing still wins this fight for RPGGM. So we're halfway through the episode and we rambled on way too much on this one part. So let's get into the group that really, really makes the money or saves the money on this one. War gamers.
Oh,
if you are a war gamer, 3D printing is just the best way to save money, period. And let's go, we went a bit hard on 3D printing with the first batch. Let's give 3D printing its easy win. Are you a Warhammer player? Do you like Kill Team or Age of Sigmar or Horus Heresy or let's jump into 40K. 40K. This is the most slam dunk that a 3D printer cost ever gets, because you still have those costs. You get a set usually, for 10, 20, 30, I don't care if $80 for the set of 3D printed. Like if you were to go buy one page's rules, Robot Legion, big old $80 get everything set, and then come back and then 3D print that, you still saved money compared to Games Workshop. And you didn't get it with the discount. By the way, get the freaking discount at 70% off. It's like stupid easy.
It's insane. Yeah.
It's great. You will save so much money that way. And then you'll get so many awesome free models on top of it. But so I printed to as part of this, I was invited to play local kill team match or into part of a local kill team club. So actual 40K. And so, and my local group is layer line friendly.
Yay.
So I bought the Kill Team box to get the rules and the tokens, and I like to support my local game store, and they cut me a nice deal on it. But I wanted to play with Dark Angels. I was like, Dark Angels seems the coolest Space Marine faction. I'll start with Space Marines and then
learn fighting words.
They may be. I'll start with Space Marines and then I'll move on to other factions later. And Kill Team's a great game for that, because it's like I need 6 guys, I need 12 guys, I don't need 800 high elves like in Kings of War, my other main game. So even this one. So I could have gone and bought a box of heavy intercessors or assault intercessors, or man, there's some weird names for Space Marines these days, or just normal intercessors.
So much
and
intercession.
Instead, I have the Puppets War files, that I paid $10 a month for. And so I just put together, we talked about, I had this project in mind when we were interviewing, when I talked about my Gloomy Knights. And so I put together a kill team using the Puppets War files. This cost me 53 cents per model, including base, to print. So altogether, a little over $3 for my entire kill team, as opposed to the $65 that it would cost to buy this kit from GW. That's or crazy. $60 if I went with normal intercessors instead of heavies.
Yeah. I got some dark, what are they called? Drakari now, the dark Eldari. I got some of those to make chitons with for D&D.
Ooh, nice.
And they're really cool for that if you ever you're in a pinch for it. But Edge Miniatures, same thing. You can get just piles of amazing dark Eldar figs for like so cheap.
Right. So like, even if I'm saving so much, if I was doing like a 2,000 point or a 1,000 point army for GW, like a combat box from GW for any other factions starts at like $150.
Yikes.
That's enough to get the printer. And by the time I buy an expansion to get it up to points, I could have bought the printer, the jug of resin, and completely 3D printed it. So I paid for the printer itself. You've saved so much money getting a Games Workshop army together for Games Workshop. And that's the most extreme example. Like, I don't play a ton of actual 40K. I play Grimdark Future, I play Kings of War, I play Age of Fantasy, I play Frostgrave, and these are all model agnostic games. So I got access to all the cheap options. So for Kings of War, Warhammer itself is just the slammest of slam dunks. For instance, like a $5 to $10 demon model that we were just talking about, Alex Shiver just printed a demon. One of, like, if I wanted to get Be'lakor, the current like big bad demon that we were talking about this at the store and we were holding him in our hands, like, he's $160.
Yeah.
$160. He by himself is worth the printer that you could have bought to print him. And for $10, $20 to Arch Villains, you could get, well, even less than that, you can get a cool freaking demon that looks enough like him, of the right size. And honestly, one or two of them is obviously kind of meant to be a proxy for him. They make one that is absolutely meant to be a Be'lakor proxy.
Yeah.
Or you could go get, like, there's fan models that have just met, like, we made Be'lakor as a fan model that you can get for absolutely free on Cults. Different look to Be'lakor, but still obviously meant to be this big giant demon dude. And then it will cost you a bit more to print a model that big. You're looking at like $7-8 in resin. Like, I printed a Not Nagash recently for a friend.
Not Nagash. I love it.
A Not Nagash from the Arc Villain, cool jackal-headed, necromancer, scaled it up to Nagash size, and that was $7 worth of resin. So a big chunk of a bottle. Nagash is $140.
Yeah.
So that's the clearest of the slam dunks that you get. So
I'm sending you a link for
Space Marines.
Pretty cool source for Chaos Demons. Hopefully, if I can get it in here. I believe you get archive access for $10 to this guy's stuff. So
I've never heard of
Z-Kino. It's kind of in that same sort of proprietary website, kind of like Heroes Infinite or whatever. But these sculpts are insane. And like, if you want, like, there's a Lord of Change that's in there that's crazy, and also does decorative busts if you're into that, like for a lot of like the Primarchs probably is what they'd be analogous to. And
I'm really interested in these 40K themed keycaps for mechanical keyboards.
Right, like just so many cool random things, huge value. You get access to that, and buying like one of those big Chaos Lord Demon things would be like $150 probably.
So so GW Wargamer is the biggest slam dunk you've ever had. I don't even care if you're playing Kill Team, the cheapest of the games to get into. You still slam dunk with this. The second you print your second Kill Team, you've made the money to buy the printer itself, much less saving models on saving price on the individual models.
Absolutely.
When we are going into other more affordable and less insanely priced war games, like let's go with one of one of my absolute favorites, Kings of War, produced by Mantic Games. It's miniature agnostic, but they produce a range of miniatures that are really nice and affordable for them. So like the Dwarfen, like here's one of the best deals they've got. The Dwarven Mega Army Pack. It's $160 to get in, but comes with over 100 dwarves. Like you're getting down to $1 a dwarf territory.
That's
here.
Pretty swanky.
It's really nice. Right. So even then, 3D printing catches the edge because for a dwarf size model, I'm really only paying like 20 cents, less than that even if I'm chunking it up. I'm still saving money, but it's less of a clear win. Like, I would not feel so bad. And this is the realm of miniatures where I will sometimes still buy, I'll go buy a pack of Mantic dwarves because they look cool and I don't have to print them.
Right.
$30 for 30 dwarves. Sure. Give me those dwarves. But I would still save money printing those dwarves.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to print those dwarves. And those dwarves look cool. And I give Mantic money and I like Mantic stuff. So this is the one where, do you save money? Yeah. Do you save a ton of money? Not really a ton of money, and it can go either way. So this is where, what do I like better? Do I like Artisan Guild's dwarves better? Do I want Mantic's cool freaking hat dwarves better? And then mix and match, buy some of Mantic's dwarves and then print the cool freaking hero, or the one that I printed for my dad, which is freaking cool dwarf riding a velociraptor with a stone fist and a keg strapped to his back.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
Artisan Guild.
This is all
right?
Artisan Guild.
Yeah, I was about to say I use a
Dark
stone
Elf
fist
set.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
It's the raptors from the Dark Elf set, and the dwarf is from the Oathbreaker set. Yeah. It's just awesome. And there's that. So for miniature agnostic gamers, pick your poison here. You are saving money for sure. Like if you're buying as far as cost of the STLs, this is where those bundles really come in handy. But even if you are paying like $10 for the STL pack for like a infantry troop type, well, you're going to need 40 of them. So you've that $10 kind of becomes meaningless in the long term.
Yeah.
Like if you're an RPG gamer, you're printing 1, 2, 4, 6. So that $10 is a significant cost. Like I've used one infantry pack from Titan Forge to print over 100 different wood elves for a different army. And so that was a penny each. It's contributing to the cost.
Yeah.
So that's not much, or 10 cents. 10 cents a piece that they're contributing to the cost at 100 elves. And so, yeah, I'm definitely saving money when it comes to that end of things. But, it's not that much more expensive to go buy some really awesome North Star figures if I really preferred those skulls. What other kinds of gamers would be interested in 3D printing?
Well, I think your print and play board gamer scene for sure. Obviously,
you will not save much money.
You won't
with board games
because you're probably looking at very simple tokens that are easy to buy online. They're easy to I know people that just take like a dowel and cut it to the shape of a meeple and just that was so cheap.
You're going to have to buy the board game anyway. So board game gamers, yeah. So what you're really getting there for the board gamer is you got really cool accessories you can print. If you like, I'm looking at helping a friend he's got the cool new Goonies game that plays like Hero Quest. That's really fun. Cool. But it's got cardboard models instead of so I'm like, let's just 3D print all these models. And so we have painted, cool, sculpted, skeleton pirates and the three mobsters and bats and all the stuff.
There's enough celebrity / pop culture Patreons, did you
Mhm.
actually find Goonie sculpts for them?
I haven't looked, but I almost guarantee they're
I'm
out
pretty
there.
sure they're out there.
We ended up doing the characters in Hero Forge, where I've got the subscription
Uh-huh.
there, so I can just download X number of free ones a month there. So that's
That
how
works.
the mobsters got done. But the cool thing about the board game is eventually it just starts taking, because it like the first 3 missions are the story of the Goonies movie,
Mhm.
but that would not be much of a board game. So for the rest of the missions, like for like the rest of the 12 missions and expansion, it's like stuff from Goonies the video game where there are scorpion monsters and undead and like the random stuff that shows up in tie-in games from the 80s in the NES era. It's like, why is James Bond punching a zombie? Why is Luke Skywalker fighting a scorpion that turned into Darth Vader?
Well, why not?
Because video games were weird back then, people. But
James is
yeah,
pointing out in chat that you can also do replacements though, and that is
indeed.
definitely a huge saving because I've been that person that lost my favorite game piece and had to go buy the game again.
Yeah.
Or
And one place you can save money in the board game is you can print those little custom inserts and dividers and to like that they're custom, like they make some for Gloomhaven that you can get off Thingiverse, or you can just like get generic boxes and just resize them to be the right sizes you need to make your own dividers, because those custom divider kits are like $100.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know because I bought one for Gloomhaven, because it made the game so much easier to have those things. But if you really, really, really love a game, you can just get an organizer for it and 3D print it yourself in PLA for like $20 worth of PLA instead of $100 to a company that laser cuts it out of the MDF.
And that is another cut to look at here with all of
Mm-hmm.
this, is that
Mm-hmm.
time and how time
Mm-hmm.
interacts with your hobby is huge. You know, there are people
Mm-hmm.
that busy lives that buying the pre-paint, buying the whatever is going to work, you know, cost value, it's going to work for them. But like, you know, you just said it right there. Not only is the organizing tray physically saving you money, it's probably saving you playtime because you can keep everything in order. You're, you know, and that leads to a faster game experience, which is time you're getting back. And again, somewhere in the math that turns back into money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you know, another thing too is like if you're living somewhere where cold weather, you know, bad weather is common, and you're going to get stuck in your house a lot. There, you're looking at. I think that's a huge 3D print win. You know, you have that day where you can't drive anywhere or go anywhere, but you get a whole army out of your printer. So.
Now let's tackle terrain. I like maybe I am eyeing Dwarven Forge, and I'm like, ooh, Dwarven Forge RPG tables are so awesome. Oh, it would cost me literally $1,000 to get enough Dwarven Forge to build the dungeon that I want.
Yep.
And I say this as somebody who went down that rabbit hole and bought that Dwarven Forge once, and then sold that Dwarven Forge because it was a pain in the rump to organize, and it was too much trouble than it was worth. So dungeon tiles, you can print a dungeon tile for about $1 worth of PLA or less.
It's true.
Actually probably less, more like 50-75 cents. And you know, you can save if you want. If your competition is Dwarven Forge, go get a Fat Dragon Games pack, or just download what's the open one again?
Open lock or dragon lock, yeah. And you know, things like cast and play come with a bonus set of that every month too.
Right. And just print those tiles like mad, and you will be fine. Like Kraken Studios, I paid like $40 for the full set, and I'm printing tiles for days and days and days. You will save so much money there. So but there is where the time, because FDM printers are slow beasties.
It's true.
So now you're not doing any of that work yourself. You're gonna have to paint it when it's done, but you have to paint the Dwarven Forge stuff too.
Well, you can buy it pre-painted, but you want to shoot that price tag up. Yikes!
Oh, ouch!
Yeah. I think
my heart like that.
The thing to keep in mind is you're going to want to do enough that it looks consistent together if you're going to use those kind of tiles, and so you're looking at a chunk of time for sure. Yeah, batch painting them will catch some of it back up though.
So yeah, and then for like bespoke pieces, like like my cool house here that I 3D printed from City of Firwood. This house in resin would cost me easily $40-$60.
Yeah.
And it was like less than $10 worth of material to 3D print this myself. It took 2 days for the 3D printer to get through all the parts, like, 2 actual days, 48 hours to print all of the parts of this house. But it's got playable interiors, it's really well detailed, it's nice and big in size, and it's probably about 8 inches tall and 6 inches by 6 inches. So whether I'm an RPG player or a war gamer, this is a kind of piece I would want, and you're getting it very cheap. All it takes is time. Now, can some of the molded stuff look better than this? Yeah, this is on FDM, so you do see the layer lines. You will see the layer lines on FDM.
So your paint job at table distance is covering up most of that.
Right. And it's not something that's easy to 3D print. When you start getting this big, like I could not fit all the pieces of this on my Saturn easily.
Right.
There are more and more. Like you can get a resin version of these to print.
But it's going to be in a lot of pieces. And if you warp them during your print, that could be
resin warps. Resin's not the answer right now until we get really big resin printers that can print these in one go. And even then, you're talking 2 or 3 times the price of materials to do. So then this suddenly becomes $30. So I'm saving $10 by doing it myself, but I also had to deal with print fails and stuff. So resin printing giant terrain, not going to be super.
But if you bought that building prefab, it would be pretty darn spendy. Right. Like, from a
and there are good cost alternatives to big buildings. Like you could get the cardstock buildings, like from Battle Systems, that look really great. They look awesome, or MDF ones, and those are really cheap. And if those are good enough for you, resin's not going to save you money. Now this is somewhere like this is better than MDF, not as good as a custom resin piece, like from like really high end, but it's close. It is close.
I did not see that toy, Alex.
I have seen that toy. Alex Shiver is talking about, hey, did you all see that printable Optimus Prime that transforms just like the toy, the classic toy from the 80s? I've seen several versions of that looks awesome. And I've also seen the one that is, they 3D printed it and roboticed it so that it transforms itself. Like you don't even do it. It just, you put a button and it does all the stuff for you.
Does it say roll out when it does it though?
Yes, it absolutely does. When it transforms into a truck. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it does they even programmed it with like, they put a Raspberry Pi in it and like lots of
of course.
And then when it transforms, it goes.
Oh, it makes a little noise. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I have seen there's so many good versions.
And old nerds at that, by the way.
So do you save money printing terrain? Yes, asterisk.
Yeah.
If you're printing dungeon tiles, absolutely. If you're printing big terrain, probably. If you're printing big terrain in resin, probably not. But that's the reason why this is FDM. This is like this real strength. Like for gamers, printing terrain pieces and tiles and tools and cool stuff like that. That's why you want an FDM printer. Go buy a Neptune 2. It will make your life so happy to be able to throw like giant buildings and stuff and get it out easily.
Very cool.
So let's get into some user questions here. There's some stuff I've really wanted to get into. Alex Shivler says, I do wonder what will happen first. GW changes their business model to embrace 3D printing, or GW filing for bankruptcy. I don't think
it'll happen.
I don't think they're going to go bankrupt. And one of these days, I do, like in the far future, I do see GW eventually embracing this technology. But when it's as common as like it's in every home. But
yeah, at that point, I could also see like the what's the Seocast, right? I could see them doing Seocast machines at store and actually just making the minis on site. Mm-hmm. I could see that happening. But yeah, there's something else here to talk about, and it's unpleasant. But there's people that are they're brand followers. I'll say followers. I won't say other words that are more deleterious. But people that they want the thing. You know, I know people that will only play D&D modules from WotC. I know people that will only play Pathfinder modules if they're APs or whatever.
Mhm.
Same thing when
Right.
it comes to these minis. There are people, and unfortunately, play groups that specifically you have to have a GW thing. It has to be to spec. It
Right.
has to be representative.
Right. Yeah, if you're especially if you're like at GW's home stores, like we're talking about the biggest slam dunk of slam dunk is playing GW games. You can't play the Games Workshop store with those models.
Yeah.
You can't. They're not going to let you. They won't let you play with other people's models in the GW store. But like I said, my local store, they're layer line friendly. They are absolutely cool with me playing with 3D print stuff. A lot of that is because like I'm the big champion of 3D printing in the area. And I also champion supporting my local store. So, like I said, I went to play Kill Team. I bought the Kill Team box because I need the rules, I need the dice, I need the terrain, I need the board. I went ahead and bought the Kill Team box. Am I going to play with those models in the box? No.
You
Am I
think
going
you'll
to
sell
3D
them?
print? No. I'll
I didn't
probably
think
build them
so.
up and let them be other like there'll be loner armies.
Loner
is what
army,
they'll be.
loner
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Did I totally 3D print a bunch of Puppets War Space Marines? Absolutely. And I love them. And I'm going to go and make some Dark Elves. And I'm going to go and make some Tyranids because they got some really cool Tyranids.
They do
I
have some
want
really, really cool Tyranids.
Yeah. But I'm not going to ever be able to play that Kill Team in a GW store. I'm never going to be able to go to the official tournament at Adepticon and play with that stuff. I can play in local tournaments. I can play in independently owned tournaments. I can play at my local store, my local home group. 99% of the places I want to play, I'm fine. But when I go to GW, I guess I'm going to have to dust off that Krieg team and actually use it.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing you see in the RPG community. Third-party content just doesn't get the reception, even if it's written by the same people.
What I see happening, really see happening with GW stuff is because GW is not going to go out of business because most of GW business is not their models. Most of GW's business is licensing and selling Space Marine crap. Not crap. Like I like Space Marines. I like the novels, but they're licensing their world. They have video game licenses. They have novels. They want people to buy and collect the models and stuff. But in the biggest value that GW has is their intellectual property. And if nobody's buying GW models, or if a whole bunch of people is 3D printing them instead, they'll just lean on that. But what I see happening is competitor coming into the space and eating their lunch. I can see Grimdark Future becoming more and more popular, and then in 3D printing friendly games or companies, because I see GW as the immovable object, and they're going to want to do they're the entrenched people that are being disruptive, and I don't see them as the agile movers in this space. I hope that there will be some agile movers as opposed to being hurt. The companies I see that are actually in danger are the middle companies and the smaller companies, where they need, like Mantic Games is probably going to want to decide what their 3D printing strategy is, because this is going to hurt their market more. So they can, then you have people like Osprey with their Frostgrave and Oathmark and Stargrave, and their main focus is we make game rules and we have models, but we mainly focus on making good games, and you can play with whatever models you want. By the way, we have models. Also, those models are very competitively priced.
Right.
Like we've just talked about, like those dwarves and those gnolls and stuff. That's great. And I can see them getting on the STL train before people like GW do. I just see like new players are going to come up in the space, and they're going to replace the market share that GW had in the model market, or you're going to end up with a whole bunch of people 3D printing Puppets War and like proxies for these models through really great artists, and playing the games outside of GW's officially approved tournaments and play spaces. And my favorite way to play 40K is still Grimdark Future. It's a better game. It's like Kill Team is the exception, because Kill Team is probably the best game that GW is making right now for the just traditional war games, not talking about their board games. But 40K is famous for being incredibly unbalanced and shifty and swingy, and you have to buy a billion codexes. Grimdark Future is an incredibly intentionally balanced game on purpose, that because it has to compete at being a better game than 40K. It's not competing on making better models than 40K. They also happen to be doing that, but they
have some really
but
good
that was
cool.
not where that company came from. And like we have a disclaimer. I've done work for one page rules, so I have to throw that out there. So I'm just using an example. Kings of War. Kings of War is a better game than Age of Sigmar.
I'm
I have
hoping
not ever accepted work from Mantic Games.
Rivenstone. I'm wondering how that's going to hit, because it looks
It's
like
not 3D printed.
Oh,
That's I know.
Even though it's
the crap out of them. I
Broken
know.
Anvil.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's from Broken Anvil. They're doing COcast for that line.
That is so weird to me. And there's
especially
no hope for that, huh? Even with their own squads, because they've made so much stuff.
I don't know what the future holds, but right now, at least with the initial launch, it is not 3D printed. It is COcast models. They seem to be very decently priced. The Kickstarter literally just went live today. It seems to be decent price models, but
they've been talking about it on their Patreon nonstop.
Right.
And so I'm like, what? Like, the idea that it's not going to be supported with 3D stuff just blows my mind.
I know. I hear that it's a very good game. So I wish them luck and stuff. And as long as their models are priced competitively, and I'm not going to hold a grudge against them, but it definitely does seem like an odd choice, especially when you have like people like Titan Forge that, they're pushing their own game, Bloodstone, and they're 3D printable. Bloodfields. Bloodstone is a different game. There's Blood plus Noun, and you have a tabletop game somewhere.
Totally.
Yeah. So Bloodfields and Grid Wars is their sci-fi game, and they are absolutely 3D printable. And
yeah, you got really cool bundles when you did that Kickstarter too.
Yeah. And then you have like Arcane Miniatures, their board game that they're putting out with the airships. You can get a 3D print version of that.
It's still scaled though. It's weird because they did a whole big full-size Kickstarter for their gaming stuff, and then the board game is just tiny ships. It's just
you couldn't do a board game with 2 foot long ships. Chris.
No, but you could do a board game there. You had ships, and then you did it blow up like a skirmish thing. That would be super cool. But
it would be absolutely cool. I just imagine, like, if you ever played like they Gen Con, they had the Star Trek Catan where they made it like 20 foot by 20 foot board, and like we're using those Nesco plastic model kits. Like the Enterprise is literally
what's wrong with that? Everybody's got
and
that
you play
space.
with those. Right. Yeah, but like with their game, you can buy the game, or you can just buy all the components in the board and then 3D print the models yourself. I think that's the smart way to go.
Yeah.
For this market. So this is definitely an odd, like this is an outlier. This is an interesting point to pay attention to, because this is a 3D people that have found incredible success in the 3D printed space, moving to the traditional space, whereas Titan Forge is offering COcast models as for people who don't have printers or don't want to 3D print them themselves. You can go, like they gave me some of their COcast models. They look great. They're nice. But they did not, but you can still get those models as STL files and print them if you prefer.
Sorry, I'm still just shaking my head about Rivenstone. Anyway.
Right. Oh, right. So do you all have any more comparisons? Did we get something horrifically wrong, like the $5 difference on the price of a Space Marine? I probably did, because GW raised their prices recently, so I'm still adjusting to the new prices that are higher than when I was originally researching for this episode.
Whenever I go into the GW store locally, they always talk to me, and I'm like, I just want to look at paint, man. Because that's the only thing I buy there anymore.
I can't 3D print my paint. Print my paint. You know what I want to be able to print, and I hope somebody makes it, because I know they make these. You can buy them like little dropper bottles that replace the caps on GW pots. Mm-hmm. I want to know if there's a 3D printer file for that, because that would be glorious. Just like take all my GW pots. I still have a few of them. Put dropper bottle heads on them. A few. I don't have many. I only have one drawer full.
Yeah, Yeah, I
and
think
half of those have become acrylic blocks.
Yeah, I've had a lot of them lock up on me lately. Well,
well,
running out of
everyone,
time.
we are done with this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you have any comments or if we got something horrifically wrong, please make sure to leave them in the comments or by emailing us at podcast@printyourgames or any of our social networks, such as facebook.com/printyourgames or twitter.com/printyourgames. If you want to listen to more episodes or more of the podcast, you can do so over at printyourgames.com. And if you want to help support the podcast, give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or iTunes. Share the podcast with your friends. Get the word out there. If you happen to watch us on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. Ring that bell. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Parham.
I'm Kristen Sowards, and don't forget your screen protector.
And we'll see